somehow we all like card games. You don't know how they're going to turn out. That's how science is supposed to be. You're not supposed to know. The scientists don't know how it's going to turn out. The problem is that we, unfortunately, teach the artifacts of science, not science. All those books in the display booth, they're all filled with the facts of science, the results of a lot of work. And it's like, here's this. And none of them with, how do we know that? How do we find out? What's the evidence? That's not what the books have. They say, somebody worked 30 years to do this, and here's the answer. You just have to know the answer. It's like, no, it's the 30 years, which is like, why did anybody? I remember the Millikan oil drop experiment when I told the kids how, in a microscope, 48 hours, he's looking at this little dot going up and down. And they said, did he get paid a lot for that? So how do we produce the mystery? How do we do that? How do we get it to be relevant to their lives? Because this is somehow, even though the cards aren't relevant, there's a relevance there. There's a fascination. We want to know about it. How do we do that in our science classes? And there are lots of different techniques. There's ways of bringing artwork in, because some kids like artwork. There's bringing poetry in, because some kids like poetry. And there's also problem-based learning, project-based learning, which we do a lot of in active physics and active chemistry, where we try to frame all the instruction in terms of a project kids have to do that they should care about. And we find projects that kids care about, but don't forget, we have diverse populations. So to get kids to care about something within a diverse population, so we have one which is like, create a sports voice overdub. You're going to be an Olympic commentator. Make a voice overdub explaining the physics of the sports that you're going to be seeing. That's great for some kids. But for other kids, it's like, no. There are people in a disaster area, like New Orleans after Katrina, or in a third world country or whatever. They don't have electricity. Can we help them with some electricity? And that helps other people, that feeling of help. Then there's, let's make a light and sound show to entertain your friends. Is another way of doing it. So we create these environments, or make a periodic table game in active chemistry, or do a cooking show like Emerald, but explain the chemistry of the cooking. And the kids learn the science because they have a job to do. And they learn the science by doing an experiment first, then activity before concept, then they get the concept, then they have to transfer that knowledge to a new domain and solve the problem. And each group solves it in a creative way. And that's it. So let me just, I forget which was the first card I put down was. So that's not your card? Come up, just pick up that card. I just have to see this.
Wow. Wow.
Tomorrow I'll tell you how it's done. That's the way we should be looking at science, because that's the way scientists do it. It's like, oh my goodness, how did that happen? Does nature do that There's a wonderful cartoon about this guy goes, it's a cartoon figure, pulls this lever and this lightning bolt strikes him, and fried. And then it branches down and says, regular person. And then you see the same lever and it says, don't pull that lever. Then it's like, scientist. I wonder if that happens every time you pull the lever. So how do we create this, and how do we make science relevant to them? How do we create motivations and recognize that all of our students have different motivations, because to reach 30 kids, you have to have 30 different motivational tools, because every child is different. The other aspect of this is, when I read about multicultural science education, or the books tell me, oh, you have to bring the culture of the kids into the classroom. And I say, really? I'm going to do that? I go to Los Angeles, there are 45 kids in a class with 23 languages. How can a teacher bring in 23 different cultures? It's impossible. What am I going to do? So I have a new kid in my class from Nicaragua. I'm going to read a book on Nicaragua that night, and the next day I'm going to come and say, I read a book on your country, I know all about Nicaragua. It's insulting. It's insulting to think you understand the culture because you've read a book. So what I realized is, no, I can't do what the books tell me to do. So I turn it around and I say, no, we have a lot of wonderful diversity in this room, in my classroom. And I want to make sure, as a teacher, that we honor, celebrate, and recognize those cultural differences. And so it's your responsibility as students to make sure you bring your culture into the classroom, and I'll make sure we all celebrate, respect, and honor it. And so when they do a challenge like make a light and sound show for your friends, we can say, oh, and I want you to choose some music that you like. Don't choose the Rolling Stones like me. You can actually go with this Wu-Tang Clan stuff. When you create a cooking food for active chemistry, when you create a cooking show, you know, the chemistry is the same no matter what you cook. Why don't you cook something that your parents or grandparents like to make so you can tell us something about your culture and we can learn about that? And so we start seeing the cultural diversity in our classroom as an additive rather than subtractive. And that's the key. If when you walk into a class and you look in front of you and you see all this wonderful diversity and you say, wow, I'm going to get to, I don't even have to travel to Nicaragua. I'm going to learn about Nicaragua just being here in my class. I'm going to learn about cultures that I don't know anything about through my students. And it's wonderful as opposed to walking in and saying, oh man, some of these kids don't speak English. What am I going to do this year? It shouldn't be a negative attribute. It should be a positive addition to the class, but it's hard work and it's hard to create that attitude. So my final point. Don't use playing cards. I was using playing cards, and it turned out that one of my methods students said, oh, I can't use cards. I said, why? And they said, it's gambling. Cards equals gambling. And I said, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. And I realized once again that I have to talk to them about that and say, no, I'm doing this because, you can use popsicle sticks, you can use, index cards, you can use anything you want to do this. You can use ping pong balls with names and whatever you want to do for the randomness. I was using cards, not realizing the cultural significance of cards to some of the students in the class. That's like, ooh, he uses cards. It really makes me uncomfortable whenever he takes those cards out. And that brings me to the final point. You're in a room with a lot of people every day when you're a teacher. And you have to let them know so they can help you, because we need help. We need help on these ideas and these concepts. They're not easy for us. And so I tell my students, not the first day, but after we got more used to everything, I said, you really have to tell me when I step over the line, because I don't always know when I step over the line. So you have to tell me, in fact, if I say something which is inappropriate. And if you ask me, say, that was inappropriate, I'll be able to either say, I meant it to be inappropriate, as, or I'll say, oh my goodness, I think you misunderstood what I said. And so, in fact, it's happened in my class, where all of a sudden I say something to one student, and then somebody else says, well, that was harsh. And I said, what was harsh? And they tell me, I say, whoa, okay, let's back up a little bit. Here's what I meant when I said that. How did you think I said it? And they tell me, I said, no, that never even crossed my mind. And so instead of them walking away thinking that I was being mean-spirited or whatever, at least we clear it up and understand that it's hard to communicate. The other thing is that there are certain ways you can deal with some people that you can't deal with other people. So the use of sarcasm. There are kids I used to, a little kind of back and forth here is fun. We can do that. We can have that back, and it's all in good fun. In fact, I've gone up to those students after and I say, "Is it okay if we do that back and forth?" They say, "I love it. The kid loves it. I love it. We can do that." I never realized, though, that there are other kids in the class who don't know that we like doing that, and they're sitting there saying, "I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hope he doesn't do that to me," because they don't know. And so you have to be very careful of the way you interact with these kids, because of the way those kids might be threatened by this interaction. So again, it's hard enough with people you know. When we have multicultural divides, it's even harder. How do we take that into account and realize that and make this environment, our classroom environment, the doors closed, that safe environment where people can feel comfortable? And so we use these different techniques that I've been talking about this morning. And none of them are, there are books written and there's a host of other issues that people have been working on for many years. And, I keep reading the literature, keep trying to learn something, keep trying to interpret and try in my class. But certainly, I thought that the idea of experience, the common experience for everybody in the labs, which I used for the cutting the deck with one hand, the idea of randomness, put up that curtain, find a way to be random. That idea of the relevance and motivation across all different cultures with the card trick I showed. And then the idea, maybe you shouldn't use cards because there are biases that you don't even know about or cultural representations that you're not sensitive to. Have the kids help you. We're all in this together. I tell the kids about the research on bias. I tell them, so you have to be aware of bias in the classroom. If you sense there's bias in the classroom, bring it out so we can talk about it. I'm not immune, nobody's immune. Let's talk about it. Well, I'm never chosen for the slab group. Why? Is it because I'm a girl? Is it because, I don't know. Let's try to figure it out. But we have to help each other. It's too big a problem for us to try to do it independently without having conversation about it. And when you start having conversation, the conversation gets a little easier. I'd just like to, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I kind of like to end these talks with Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. That's, I think, the key. Be the change you want to see in the world. And then the world is a little better place, and it's certainly a better place because we all were able to share this breakfast. So thank you very much.